This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. This week's episode is brought to you again by the Friends of the Magic Word. This week we'd like to welcome our newest friend of the Magic Word, Mr. Alan Lee. Welcome, Alan. Thank you very much for your financial donation to the Magic Word Podcast. It's because of the financial support from friends like you who help keep this podcast going. So thank you very much, and if any of you would like to learn more about how that you can assist, all you need to do is go to themagicwordpodcast.com, and there you will see a tab that says Become a Friend of the Magic Word, and I would ask you just to take a look at the video, and it will explain more about why we could use your support. Well, we are about to wrap up our Magician's Relief Project. We are in the 9th week with only one more week to go, and we have been fortunate to help several magicians and magic shops along the way. And we thank Gene and Betty Protus for initializing this project. And I know it has been, again, helpful to some others. So this has been a project of one magician helping another magician. So if you have some opportunity to help someone who might be in need, maybe this might be an inspiration to find and assist someone else who could use a little bit of help right now. Well, this week we're going to welcome a friend of mine, Lisa Menna, who is someone who has been a little bit in the news, I guess, in the magic news, because she was on the cover of Genie magazine this year and was also one of the speakers at the Genie convention last year in Florida. She has been a longtime friend of mine and currently is residing in the Caribbean, in the Virgin Islands, specifically in St. John's. And so she joins us via Skype there. And so we were having a video Skype and talking with each other. And that's the next best thing we could have, it seems like now, because of how far we are distanced from each other and because of her travel schedule, because she is someone who has started out then not only as a magician, but has done some clowning and doing some children's shows, school shows, but most, I guess, notably, she was very well known for her success in the trade show business. And then later, what she is doing now, which I find very fascinating, is her venture that's a 501c called the Cause to Wonder. And she's going to talk about that then as well, about all her philanthropic adventures that she does over in third world countries, and it's very helpful. Anyhow, delightful conversation we have with a lot of really good information, not just for male magicians, but she's got some stuff in here that I would implore female magicians to be sure to pay attention to, because there are things that apply really to women more than men, certainly. I don't like to differentiate men magicians from female magicians because a magician is a magician. I'm just saying that some of the things that she has discovered as a female that she shares with us on this podcast that I think would be more applicable to women. Well, enough of that. I'll let her explain it in her own words. So please welcome this week Lisa Menna here on The Magic Word. So today we're here with a very good friend of mine, Lisa Menna, who once hailed from here in Texas originally, although having lived at different places, but now is of the world, I guess is the best way of me trying to put that. I remember introducing John Calvert one time, and it was one of those things then as well that was hard to try to nail him down as to where he was from, except that he was a citizen of the world, and that's much like our next guest that we have then right now. So please welcome my very good friend, Lisa Menna. Hey, Lisa.
Hey, did you just compare me to John Calvert?
I did.
Oh, God, I model my life after him.
Isn't he
my
wonderful?
Next adventure. Well, maybe the people don't know, but John's story, here's a version of John's story, was he was a magician. He did a film. They told him to order whiskey. He said, no, I want to order Coke. I want to be a better upstanding citizen. Right. They said, fine. Coca-Cola picked him up and sponsored his shows around the world for years. And he'd show up. He bought a big old boat, and he'd float up to an island nation, and he put on a magic show. And Coca-Cola was his sponsor, so everybody got their first Coke. And he'd have a beauty contest beforehand to spread the publicity and pick the prettiest girl. And, of course, all the runners-up got a ticket. It was a brilliant. And he went all over the world to the most amazing places. John Calvert's my hero, because I'd like to do Cause to Wonder on a boat so that I don't have to pay for hotel or worry when I sleep.
You know, one of my favorite books that I recommend when people say, what's in your your 5-foot bookshelf that you would carry with you to an island would probably be that John Calvert book by William Rauscher. That was his biography, because every chapter read like a movie. You could take any chapter of that because it was so different one from the other. Everything that he did, where he was doing a blindfold flight, when he was flying, or that when his ship was one of his Magic Castle ships, he named Magic Castle, had been blown up, and then he treaded water for 4 hours, and I mean, he was just an incredible guy.
Hero. True hero. What's the name of that book again?
It was, I believe, called the John Calvert biography, again by William Rauscher. Just look up John. Do a Google for. I'll have to go. It's in my library behind me. I'll have to go and pull it off the shelf.
That was for everybody else.
Yeah.
That was for everybody else. You don't have to Google it. They can Google. But maybe we're being listened to 100 years in the future, and there's no Google. Maybe there's only a Gwiggle.
A Gwiggle. There would probably be some way, of course, that you can probably just, after you'll have that chip in your brain, that you can kind of access that without having to go to a computer sometime in the future. Who knows what the future is going to bring for us over here. But as I was saying, we've been, it seems like lifelong friends. And when you were, one of the times we were just talking about Trixie Bond, and whenever that I had introduced you, I guess at a Magic Club meeting, or told you first about her, and you were about 17 or so at the time.
I was in high school.
High school, yeah. Now, I do remember also vividly, almost like it was last week, when we...
Just for the listeners, it's 40 years later now.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
That you and I were at the TAOM in 1982 in Fort Worth. And that was where I really got to spend some time with you and others, because Roger Klaus had put something together and kind of said, hey, what are we all doing for lunch today? And it was going to be he and you and me, John Miller, and Charles Green III. I can't remember who else was there. I think Roger bailed out, and it ended up being us. But we went outside, and it was near that park that was in Logan's Run in the movie, that had that waterfall in there. You remember that? I think that's whenever
I do not at all.
Okay. Well, it was important to me, because that was when I felt like that I really secured a good friendship with you. I'd known Charles for quite a while here in Houston, known John Miller for a while, but then it kind of threw you into the loop, or the mix there as well. So.
Well, I knew you longer than that, though, because you were a working magician.
Yeah.
And I was wannabe, so when you became aware of me was much later than when I became aware of you.
Ah, well, now everybody's wanting to be you. You were quoted.
Yeah, well,
you were quoted as saying something in Genie magazine about, that you can't be a master magician till you're over 50 years old, which now you say that you are. And so, do you feel that you've really achieved that you're a master magician? I feel that you are. I mean, now people, want to be like you.
No. No, I'm not a master magician. But I do understand how to use the pause.
Boy, is that important.
And that is, for me, a triumph in my performance ability. And I have, it's very interesting, when you've been watching it a long time from many points of view, it's very interesting what connections you make. Like, for example, going from close-up to stage, there were nuances in close-up that I could take with me. Like, the trick where you take on stage, you take a banner which is split into 3 sections with poles. Someone stands in the center, you wrap them up, zigzag them out, and it pops out another person.
Right.
So I would do that, and I'd bring somebody up on stage, and I'd say, hey, what's your talent? An executive or something. And they'd say, well, I don't need talent. I'd say, well, can you sing? No. Can you dance? No. Can you play the harmonica? No. Drums? No. Well, how about a clown? And I'd take out a clown costume, and I'd hand them a clown costume, and they'd be standing there with the clown costume. I'd wrap them up, I'd unwrap them, and they'd be dressed.
Just like that.
Really? Mm-hmm. Just like that. And then they would walk forward, and I would give them the microphone, and I would do a trick with them where they were talking. Right?
Right.
But really, the person had already been switched. The audience thought the trick was, look how fast Bob got his clown suit on. Right? Because Bob would come out and continue talking. And Bob was actually off stage on a different microphone. So when I said something to him, the guy off stage would answer, but the guy on stage would motion his hands. So the audience thought it was still Bob in now the clown suit. So a little while later, I would turn the clown into Charlie. by taking off his wig and saying, "Ta-da, the switch long forgot." Now, that's a stage technique that doesn't really exist very often with sound, but I always tap the bottom of the table before I do salt shaker through the table. When I set the glass down, I tap it on the table so you hear the glass set, right? So it's an audio cue that's later to remind you. So suddenly the silly little zigzag illusion, which is more of an eye candy thing, becomes a brilliant substitution because I moved it forward with sound, and I only knew about that from Close-Up Magic.
You know, I've told people for years about that whenever I give lessons about how that it's important to have a grounding in close-up magic because that can be applied to so many things in your stage performance. Likewise, that people who are doing close-up only should have some knowledge of stage because of black arts and blocking, choreography, and things like that.
You know, look how many YouTube videos or people you show that show videos and you see hands and a crotch.
That's true. Yeah. Instead of up by your face.
Right. So just the basic staging of performance and the basic staging of framing and things, those things cross over and carry over. It's awfully interesting. Mm-hmm. It's been really fun, even though I transitioned from birthday partying to stand-up, to restaurants, to stand-up, to illusions, and it took about 7 years between it. Some of it I did not enjoy. Like, I was already good at close-up. Why did I want to stand up on stage and bomb? But, you get through it, right?
That's true.
If you're not bombing once in every 100 shows, you're lazy.
I remember for a while, I think it was after, or I can't remember if it was before or after your trade show work, that you actually had gone, because of your clowning experience in the past, you actually went with the circus. I mean, it's kind of like you ran away with the circus in Russia or something. Is that right?
Did you get that story from me?
Yes, you did. Yes.
No, it's a little different of a story.
Okay. Well, it seems like whenever I run into you, like at FISM or whatever, it's like, hey, we're just kind of ships in the night.
Right. I get it. I understand. I understand that you are a cameo in my life.
Yeah.
Assistant. It's very funny. When I met you, you were one of the slickest acts in Houston, and right, and at that time twice my age.
Yeah.
And now we're almost the same age.
That's funny. Wow. So what are you doing tonight?
Exactly. Well, nothing. I'm going to go for a swim at sunset. One of the fascinating things of being an artist for a lifetime is you get to watch the evolution of the art. And there was the Iron Curtain in which the world had separated for some time. Mm-hmm. So since the 40s or the 50s, this curtain went up, and there wasn't very much communication between the East and West of Europe, and magic evolved. And then the Iron Curtain came down in the 80s and 90s. And suddenly, there was interaction, and I was about in my 20s, so this would be 35 years ago, in Bregenz at a convention, a magician's convention, and there was Voronin and his girlfriend, Galina.
Galina, right.
From Russia. And they were there at this conference, and I'd never met a Russian before, but I had taken a semester of Russian in college because I thought I was going to save the world, and I better be able to talk to it, and the Iron Curtain was the biggest threat. So I knew a little Russian. So I met these people, we had a great time, and the simplest thing they would be gobsmacked at, and vice versa. They'd show me something super elementary, and I'd be like, how'd you do that? And I realized that the arts had separated, and we'd been influenced by different people. We both did a levitation, but a completely different method, both based on who was influencing them and based on what materials were available. Like, Veron told me a story about how he wouldn't break up with a girlfriend because she had the perfect, long, thin hair for invisible thread. So when he finally broke up with her, he stole her hairbrush. Anyway, so Veronin is an old friend of mine, and he comes to America in our 30s, 10 years later, and says, the curtain's down. Lisa, we have baby coming. We moved to America. Help us get job. So I got him a job in Teatro Zanzani, and it took me 1,000 phone calls to get it, but we got him and his wife a job working in America, so they had an American baby. Mm-hmm. So I figured I did my share in saving the world. I got this one family, American citizenship, raw.
That was a good family, too, man.
Yeah, nice amazing people, right? I love them, they love me. So fast forward, it's a decade later, and I'm tired of being in trade shows, and it's at the point where perestroika has been destroyed for a decade. And anybody who went through the original communist Russian system, their life depended on how well they performed at their graduation ceremony because they got graded A through D. And if they were a D, they got paid $40 a show, and if they were an A, they got paid $200 for the rest of their lives. So this was a big deal. So their nuances and their performances were intense, and they really knew what they were doing, and they had schooling, whereas the rest of us just put our crap out there and did our best, and somebody tried to help us along the way. There's no system to develop artists in America. So I thought I want to work for these people before they're too old to work, because at the time I was in my late 30s, so I figured if you're a circus act and you're in your 30s, you're my age, and you were the last people to graduate in the perestroika before the perestroika system, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
The Russian system. So I went and I worked in this Russian circus for a couple of months, 4 or 5 months, with all these people who had been trained in the classic Russian communist style.
Mm-hmm. As a clown.
Well, I wasn't as a clown. I was as a variety performer.
Okay.
And I was a clown-like character in it. But what was fascinating to me was I had just done a show at the Ritz-Carlton in Chicago to huge rave reviews. I stepped off the plane in Vienna, and I was so pathetically amateur compared to those acts I was working with. I mean, I got better over the months I was there, but those people knew about timing, the difference between tempo and pacing. They had me sit and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 as I watched an act to see at what rate and speed things were introduced and why. The things that they taught me by just working with them for those few months, it was amazing. And that is not even available because now current acts that come out of Russia, well, it used to be in communism, the best and brightest went into arts or athletics because that's a way you could succeed, get noted, and have influence because nobody could get paid more. But now the best and brightest go into money, whereas in our system, the best and brightest go into money, and if you decide to be an artist or an athlete, unless you're a real exception, you mean you decided to kind of starve. Right. So because of communism, all the best people were artists or athletes back then, or all the top achieving people. Best is probably a judgment I don't need to bring into.
Understand.
But so that's why I went and worked in the Russian circus, and it was something. It was a great time.
And you learned a lot also. That was how many years? For about 5 years?
I only worked in it for one season.
One season? Oh, really? Okay.
One season from like February to March or something. But we did a show every night except one night a week. It was certainly the hardest I ever worked. Oh my God.
Changed your life.
Sure. Well, it sent me in a new direction. Yeah.
When you were working, then also doing close-up and walk-around strolling and cocktail, and I've talked with Trixie about this then as well, as far as carrying things on you, that did you have special pockets and things made into your attire?
Oh, I had a purse.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I carry a purse. All women carry a purse.
Right. That's kind of what Trixie always had, then too. But I thought maybe in addition to that, obviously you have your own gibber-say, so to speak.
Well, the law in the United States is if your clothes are gimmicked, you can deduct them, but if they're not gimmicked, you can't. So I sewed a dove pocket in every expensive jacket I ever got.
Yeah, my accountant had told me about that.
I also used it. Sure, there are nuances, clothing nuances that apply. You have to change where you place the top in. Right? Mm-hmm. There are, where to start? Let's see. Let's go up and down the body. How's that? The women can hide things in their hair because they have long hair and barrettes.
Never thought of that.
Right? So you can, put anything on a barrette and dangle it at the back of your neck and reach out and get it. You can you can hide anything in a bag that is covered in your hair or a bag that is hairy. Touch your head and have a magnet on your head, and it stays on your head, and it just looks like your hair got a little bigger. Right? Yeah. You can hang around your neck any object that then since you have an open neck shirt and we usually have a V-neck, you can, like a necklace, loop your thumb underneath and pull it forward, and it's now in your hands. So you can load anything from the center of your body into your hands.
Oh, right.
In the same way you can do it out of the side of a coat if you're wearing a coat. If a woman has extra lumps in her form-fitted outfit, her lumps are what is sought after in the first place in her figure. So the counting of the lumps is the first thing that the audience does. And if there's an extra lump or a lump that's out of shape, or God forbid a lump that is wiggling, or as Dietrich famously says, a lump that decides to pee, you're caught out. I want to make a statement about that too.
You're excited to see me, huh?
Well, kids get excited on stage, and sometimes they outgrow their bladder and they pee, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So that's something that moved forward with me. I have always used a loadable in my show.
Me too.
Not because of and people find it miraculous, but I always have it in my show as a focus point, because if I have a child on stage and they start to pee, I can toss that water on them immediately. They are covered in water, and only the child and their mother knows they peed. Huh. And there's no embarrassment for that person. And 1 in 50 or 100 shows, some kid gets so excited that he pees or she pees.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so why not have that saving grace? So that's why I keep it in the thing. How do we get there? Oh, right, water. Yes, so costumes, peeing. You can wear sleeves and you can wear a jacket, but it's not generally the way women dress up, and at least until they're middle-aged. And it is show business, and sexuality is part of show business, so having a sexy outfit or a form-fitting outfit or a body that elicits some kind of reaction, if that's the way you choose it, requires a different set of how to steal and how to hide the load.
Mm-hmm.
I think fingernails are really interesting because now you can embed fingernails with electric chips. There is eyeliner on the market that is new to this day. You probably don't know this, but you know how there's fantastic eyelashes right now on the market? Where girls are wearing these super heavy long eyelashes everywhere.
Okay.
Have you noticed that?
Not really. No.
Okay, now you know. And this is a relatively new thing. This is being taped in 2020, and this has been on the market for 6 months or a year, and now it's quite popular. That you take eyeliner, you eyeline your lash, and then you take your giant lash and you put it on. Instead of gluing it on, which was the old way and kind of hard to do right, the eyeliner is metallic, and the eyelashes are magnetic. So you now put the eyeliner on and take the eyelash and go, thunk, and it sticks on.
So it's not glued on there, actually, so it's easier to come. Okay, gotcha.
You can now take that same what is black now, but make it flesh tone, paint it anywhere on your body, and a magnet will stick to it.
That is cool. I did not know about that.
Well, yeah, well, it's makeup, right? It's makeup, So, and that's another thing. Makeup helps women on different levels. Like if you take a pantyhose and you put it down your arm, and you tuck it and you tuck it and you tuck it and you tuck it all along so that it's like snake-like.
Okay, yeah.
You can stick anything in that tuck, and just by pulling on the or pulling up the pant, it causes whatever's in that tuck to pop right out. So you can hide things against your body in the compression of any nylon on both your torso, your arms, your neck, and your legs, and pull it right out if you have the right masking. So it requires accordion pleating, for lack of a better explanation, of the nylon. But then in between the folds, you can hide any kind of thing and pull it right out just by pulling on the fabric and making it pop. Much like a dove production would work when you pull it and it goes and it catapults the dove out.
Right. Speaking of makeup, I think that is important. Many years ago, during an ice storm, I was stuck in Dallas and got to spend over 24 hours with Rick Walker, staying at his house. And Rick had told me about how to apply makeup. And he said, this is a daily thing. I mean, it'll make sure, here's some things you put on first, an underliner, et cetera, et cetera. And was showing me, I'd never thought about men wearing makeup as a regular thing, not necessarily just for stage or when you're going out or whatever. And it kind of opened my eyes to something saying, he does look a lot better, whenever men do as well as women, if you just apply a little bit of makeup. I haven't really done anything with that since then, except on stage, but it was just kind of interesting. Well,
makeup is interesting, right? Makeup is to make up, to pretend, right? Mm-hmm. I pretend, I made a story up, I make it up. So you're pretending to be something by putting on a mask, whether you want to be authentic or not. And we're in a current society where if I don't pretend by tarring my eyelashes and waxing my lips, I'm actually considered of a lower class or of a lower status because I haven't made up my face in Texas culture where we're from.
As a woman in particular, yeah.
And here I am in the Caribbean, and if I were to wear makeup out, I would be considered false, unless it was hidden makeup, which is what a man would do, right? Yeah, but if I would actually advertise by doing an array of colors on my lips and enhancing these things, I would be less authentic and untrustable. So makeup is an interesting thing. And so it's if you're doing spontaneous performance in the real world, it's different than if you are doing a stage performance. If you're on stage and you're not wearing makeup and powder and eyeliner so that the audience can see you better and pulling your hair at least any hairstyle that you have has to happen behind your ears and the back of your head to the back, and none of it forward, because no one from stage right or stage left can see you if your hairstyle comes forward in front of your ears.
That's good advice. I've noticed that on some of the television specials like Masters of Illusion and shows like that, where there are a variety of other magicians, many of whom are young men who have longer hair, it seems like that they have intentionally kept their hair swept back or pinned or something so that it's not in their face. And I'm sure that someone had given them that advice before they walked out on stage to be in front of the camera and the audience.
Well, you want to be able to have your expressions be seen from as many angles as possible, right?
Right. Well, and that's why I think that you need to have that makeup like you were talking about on stage. Same thing with me whenever I would be on a stage, that I would have pancake and a little bit of eyeliner or whatever, because that they need to be able to see your eyes. They shouldn't just disappear, and you should have some eyebrows also. So, yeah, there are things that I think you should do as a magician.
Well, and it depends. Are you a puzzler or a trickster? Or are you doing theater and show business?
Well, you talk about Dan Sperry, for an example. Now, there's a guy I see who's got a character, and he has his hair kind of down his face, but that's his thing, you know?
Yeah, and even though it's down in his face, it's only a piece of hair
Good
as
point.
a marker in his face. His actual haircut is back. There's just a few spikes in the front for attitude.
Right.
But you can actually see him from left and right.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, the way he has that cut and everything. So we were still talking about just the outfit, and so you had different pockets and everything then as well. I use a high caliber holster, so this thing would then slide over my underneath my jacket, much like a shoulder holster or whatever, so that way that you have access to to cards, coins, ropes, thumb tip, pins, and everything, whatever that you need. So this way, I think one of the
Scott, I got news for you.
Yes.
That's a bra.
It's a bra?
That's a bra. Put it on.
Okay. Yeah. Kind of like that.
Okay, pin it together in the front. Put a little thing together in the front. It's a bra, baby.
Okay. Now I can't get that out of my mind. Each time I put this on, I'll think of you.
Right.
But it's just, I think it's important, again, to know where things are. You shouldn't be fumbling for your next thing, whether you're stage or close-up, that one thing leads to the next one, so that you have a good segue. So that has to do with pocket management.
The transition, pocket management, and I feel I always do poorly at that. Definitely. I've been in this business for 40 years, and I've never been satisfied with my table or where I dump my tricks, except maybe in the very beginning of my career when I had to finish and reset as I put it away because I was working so much. But I'm always quite bad at that. So going down the body, you can hide things in your shoes too. Like you can put something on your heel, and when you step forward, you can reach in under your foot. If you have a high heel shoe on or a loafer on, you can then your heel pops out of your foot when you reach over, and your hand can, like if you want correct change, you can put $52 folded up in your heel, and when you step forward to pick up like a pencil off the ground, your hand naturally goes by your heel, and you can swoop it up into bare hands and palm it without ever going near anything. So you can hide things in your high heel shoes. The angles of how your arms and your body is different. If you are tossing something under your arm as a man, it's a pretty long reach to lift up your arm and have it drop into your other hand to retrieve, right? However, if you hold your hands in front of you like a prayer, hold your hands in front of you like you're praying.
Right.
Now I want you to put 2 styrofoam coffee cups in front of you, right, where your breast would be.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And now if they were there and you were holding your prayer position, suddenly your forearm would be pressed against your flesh in front of your body, which means you could put a coin there, right?
Okay.
And open your hands and show them to the audience, and then just by turning your hands like this, you could retrieve it and drop it again, because the angle of where we can have a closed space, body against body, to hold something is different in our hands. If my hands are praying in front of me and I have now an object in my hand, I go to put it into my other hand, and instead of putting, let's see, I'll explain it better. My hands are in front of me in a prayer position with my palms flat together, so that my forearms are now making a triangle in front of me. Therefore, when I want to take something in my hand, if I do a French drop from my left hand into my right hand, holding my right hand in a closed fist as if the object is in my closed fist, my left hand is thumb palming the object. As it goes back, it touches my breast, my hand closes, and I go like this. Now, when I open it, I can open it in such a way that my hands are empty and shown empty, and my hand to retrieve it does not have to swing all the way around under my armpits to get the object back.
So it's being held really in the crotch of your elbow and
no,
against.
It's not at my elbow. It's pressed here and here.
Oh, I see, between the forearm and the side of your breast. Okay.
Or the front of my breast.
Front. Okay.
Wherever, but that what if the way to practice it is to put some teacups on the front of you, hang some teacups on the front of you, and see where your hands would be. If you were a woman, holding your hands like this is natural. Whereas if you were a man, you'd have to go all the way over here to catch the object.
Oh, I understand what you're saying. Yes, by putting it in the front. Okay, yes, in the breast as opposed. Yeah, men would have to reach under his. Mm-hmm.
And now it's back again. And there was not any of this.
Right. So really, it's being held against your forearm, whereas that a man would have to,
would have to do it under his armpit.
It would not seem as natural with your hand, a man's head.
If you try to put if you put your forearm against your chest,
that doesn't look right.
It doesn't look right. But if you have your forearm at a 60-degree angle to your body, and that still is pressing against flesh, if you had a boot there, see, so that's that. Yeah.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. Huh.
That's in the realm of pure sleight of hand. If you want to have an impossible place to hold things in the realm of pure sleight of hand without gimmicks, without anything, I'm always carrying that tool with me.
Just grow a breast. Oh, yeah.
Well, and if you have one, use it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's part of the beauty of what you've done is that you have taken what you have physically and made everything into an advantage. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it wasn't so much an advantage, but the existing things didn't suit me. Like I have a bra pit, which is the top in my bra.
Right, I've heard of that.
And I have a tube. I can toss something into my cleavage, and it can go down to the tube, and I can retrieve it at my waist. I can, and I never put something directly in it or even throw directly in it. I always do a false transfer, and as a way to go south with whatever I'm keeping, I use my bra pit, because having a top it wouldn't be reasonable, right?
Right. Although that I would think with a top-it that because of the breast that the bottom part of your jacket would be held out.
But no woman who is hired to work is wearing a man's jacket. You're not wearing it.
That's true.
It's like me saying to you, put it in the pleat of your skirt.
Well, if I'm wearing a kilt, perhaps, yeah.
Right, exactly, and in those specific things, but it's not. It doesn't. That's the key. Now there are a lot of women in magic, so it's all had to be rethought, but. Hiding a load in a skirt is way easier than hiding a load under your jacket. No,
that's true. Yeah, Dell O'Dell had proven that, I think, and others, ladies way back when,
Well, and every gypsy who did not participate in the financial system has made it work for centuries.
Yeah. So right now you're living in the Caribbean, in the Virgin Islands, or whereabouts are you exactly?
I am in the Virgin Islands on the island of St. John, U.S. Virgin Islands, just above South America, about 400 miles.
How many months out of the year do you stay there?
Do you want me to decide now?
What's that?
Why? Because you have an opportunity for me? Are you asking?
No. No. I'm just curious. That I would think it'd be beautiful all year round. This is a tourist destination that people go to, and that cruise ships dock. No,
the cruise ships dock on a different island. I'm on St. John, which is mostly national park, and there are 12 people that live in my there are 12 people in my village right now. There are 25 houses in my village, and then I'm a half an hour ride from the next village that has 200 people. Different place than you have in your mind's eye.
Do you ever have any issue as far as trying to find groceries? Or you have obviously good internet service as we're talking over here then right now, but television or could get Rice Krispies and
a loaf of bread is $9. Sure.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I have coconut trees, and I eat aloe, and I know how to cook seaweed.
Wow. So that keeps you healthy.
But there's a little living off the land. But no, this is a remote island that has very little water, and so the water makes horticulture difficult. But it's a U.S. island, so it's much better off than a lot of the Caribbean islands that are down island because they don't have the infrastructure or the protection.
Yeah, I understand.
Beautiful.
Sorry, I kind of got off on a tangent over there. I just want to go back for a minute and also as far as how the development of your act into the future then as well. And this is a conversation, I don't expect you to have listened to all 550 plus episodes of the podcast that I've had in the past, but there have been many in which that I have brought up the point and used you as an example, because Trixie had told me about this, in which that you and Becky Blaney and Trixie were talking about developing characters as women grow older, that whereas a man would wear a traditional tuxedo all of his life, basically, but a woman, would have different times in her life in which that she would be dressed differently to be accepted as a magician on stage. And in Trixie's case, that she had decided that she was going to be continuing to be an elegantly dressed lady, in a corporate environment. So when she's doing strolling, she looks like that she is accepted there just like another person. And that you, on the other hand, have taken a position then of being an older woman, kind of a bag lady. I think that as you had said, maybe Mama Menna.
No, she's not a bag lady. Oh my God, that's the one you're talking about.
Well, the bag lady I was thinking about, was the one in Playboy magazine years ago when I read that.
No, I was not in Playboy magazine.
there was a cartoon. There was a cartoon where that this lady was carrying a bag, and she used to. It kind of reminded me of that lady on Laugh-In also, Ruth Buzzy. I think kind of played that kind of a part basically.
Maybe a little old lady, but not a bag lady.
Well,
I don't.
Carrying a bag.
That's like you think a bum. This transient alcoholic.
Not at all what I meant.
What you're asking me is, why did I choose to in my 40s, I was still beautiful, and instead I put on an old lady fat suit, and I could have milked the last of my pretty. And why am I not transitioning into my pretty? I think women in entertainment are different than men in entertainment. Certainly attractive men have an easier time of it, but it's not their primary value. A man can be funny, a man can be clever, a man can be elegant, and that is still entertainment. But women are not particularly visual, except at a certain age. And when you are in the age of mating, your sexual dynamic is a different thing. And women are not that interested in mating after a certain period in their lives, and men are interested in mating until their last breath.
Okay.
So your value as a female is determined by how many men are excited to mate with you. And so you can exploit that as an entertainer and are forced to in our society. You have to remain competitively attractive. A man, however, does not have to remain competitively attractive. He cannot, however, be poor. Right? If a woman is not pretty, it is the same as a man being not financially secure.
Okay.
Right? Or on first look as entertainers, so we present something pretty. If you're a lousy speaker and you learn a couple of magic tricks, you succeed because you suck at speaking, but you have a couple tricks, and speakers are boring. Mm-hmm. So if you're a speaker who does magic, face it, you weren't a good enough magician to be a magician, and you're not a good enough speaker to be a speaker, so you put the two together and you kind of eke by. Same thing if you're a stripper and you vanish a hanky. You're not a really good stripper. Your hanky doesn't vanish that well, but you put the two together, and it's novelty enough by crossbreeding the environments to make them work. So then the question is, as an entertainer, what do you want to present to your audience, and what's marketable? Right? Mm-hmm. And I can't be funny. If I say, sit down and shut up, I'm a bitch. But if I say, hey, you, sit down and shut up, and I'm an old lady, it's funny.
Okay. Right.
My dynamic of who I can be and what I can say is a judgment call. As a young woman, I'm sassy and edgy, and I'm liked and I'm attractive. As a middle-aged woman, I'm acceptable maybe, or I'm an obstacle, unless I have something to offer. Perhaps I could cook a good casserole. Perhaps I do a clever puzzle. But I'm a middle-aged woman in entertainment is like an old pear tree. It still produces a few fruits, but it requires a ton of fertilizer and a ton of pruning, and not very much juice comes out of it. Right? So why go through the suffering of being that unwanted or unacceptable thing? And it's not true that I don't sometimes work as myself as an articulate woman of the world. I certainly worked for the United Nations last year, and I had a combination of characters, but I was definitely an articulate woman of the world. But the Mama Menna character is funny, much funnier, and
You've grown into that. You feel comfortable, and as you've gotten older with that role because you've done it so many times, you mean?
No, not at all. I haven't done it that many times, maybe 50 or 100, and I've been doing it for 10 years. Okay. I do it occasionally. It is more accepted. If I do the same show as myself, as 55-year-old Lisa Menna, I get an exciting applause and some enthusiasm. If I do the same show as Mama Menna, and I play the old Italian character, because of the high vulnerability of an old lady, and they don't think, oh, she's playing a character. They really think I'm old.
Yeah.
I get a standing ovation every time. People like me better. They don't come to me with judgment. They don't say, is she rich? Is she poor? Do I envy her? Who's she been? What's she done? They say, oh, cute little old lady. I mean, you meet these old people in the world, and they're all so sweet and so vulnerable, and then later you find out they beat their wives, or they did such and such and such, but it was a long time ago, and now they're old, and they're forgiven, and there's some level of dynamic that's interesting and forgiven. When I first started Mama Menna, I did it because I wanted to try out this old lady character, and I was on a show in Canada called Dragon's Den, and it's like Shark Tank that we have in America. And so I tried out the character to pitch this product because I thought it'd be funny, and I wanted to try this character out. And it went so well that I decided to keep the character. So in order to give her some experience and find out who she should be, do I want to, because an 80-year-old woman nowadays dresses in leopard skin leggings and Nikes and tries to be young, right, in young modern clothing.
Right.
And my character is behind the times. She's still wearing the dresses that she got in 1972, right? My character's a little bit more lost in that. So I took my character, my little fat suit, I'm walking around New York City, right, and I do a really good pratfall. Where you pretend to slip and fall. Right. I do a really good one. And I've worked on it for years. So
without
I would
hurting
walk
yourself.
Yeah, totally not hurting myself, right? And I don't actually need to fall down. I could just do a trip, right? And I was so in New York City, and everybody's passing me. Nobody's looking at me. And I'm walking along in my character, looking at things in life in general. And then I do a pratfall, and I start to fall, right, to see what would happen. Everybody around me, 5 people, reach out and grab me to make sure I'm okay. So even though all those people were pretending not to see me, they were like I was a 3-year-old child lost on the street. While I wasn't their business, they were going to be sure that I was taken care of. And it changed my whole idea about what aging would be like. And that was maybe 10 years ago. That was when I was still in my 40s, and I had the choice of I can hoist stuff, tar, paint, and wig out and still be competitively attractive. Or I can put on a fat suit and an old wig and be funny and loved.
Yeah, that's
funny and loved than a sex object.
That is a choice, and I applaud anybody who is actually making a conscious decision to do and choose whatever type of character they want to do. And I mention that because, again, going back then to Becky Blaney, where that she has decided that she had an act that was as a cheerleader, and having won a bunch of awards for Miss Texas and whatever else, and has a funny act and keeps her hair looking young and everything, and so has maintained that character as she is aged, so that she has wouldn't really kind of say the same act, but similar things that she's saying and doing now. But her point of view has
changed, though. She's let her point of view change with her age, so it's even funnier.
Yeah.
Right? Because from the beginning, the thing about Becky is every time I see her, she's even better. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've watched Becky perform for 30 years.
Yeah.
And she never sits on her laurels and says, I've got it. She's always adding a nuance or a joke or a funny thing. And so as her act has aged, as she's aged in her act, she still has the same, I used to be a beauty queen. Yes. But I used to be a beauty queen when you're 30 is, oh, well, what are you going to do now? I used to be a beauty queen when you're in your 50s is funny.
Yes.
I think it's helped her act.
It does work. Yeah, it does work for her. I'm saying, but she has consciously chosen that kind of a character, And I've talked with so many people, whether it's Danny Archer, John Carney, and others who have consciously gone out and created a character. And I remember Danny Archer was saying how that he has gotten several bookings as a result of his character internationally because people like that particular character. And the same thing like with John Carney with some of his characters. And it's also a thing that you can go back and book yourself who have already booked you, let's say, as Lisa Menna, but now they have you again to come back as Mama Menna. So you have
really Mama Menna and Lisa Menna do a lot of the same material.
Oh, do they? Okay, so yeah. It's just.
Oh God, yeah.
Okay, but there are some things that you could.
It's not. Nothing is well rehearsed. Mama Menna is not well rehearsed. I do my regular material. I put on the wig and the outfit, and I talk slower and walk slower and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, as you have continued to transition from starting out, in clowning, and then doing corporate trade shows successfully for a long number of years, and going from close-up stage, to different little, big venues, certainly, and then traveling the world, that you've really kind of settled on something that I think is really phenomenal. That is the cause to wonder, and I really want you to talk a little bit about what that is. I'm unclear exactly how that works.
Well, when you want someone to think, give them cause to wonder. I'll say that again. If you want someone to think, just give them cause to wonder. If you give them cause to wonder, they'll start to think. Got it? Cause to Wonder is a 501c3 nonprofit, which basically means you can give us a donation and you can tax deduct it. Probably, maybe, who knows what the government rules are now. But it's an organization that puts on cultural events that are cross-cultural, that cause people to think because there's some amazing element to it. Mostly it's basically a magic show with a message. I took my trade show experience and brought it into the jungle. I go into a village and make a rock disappear, and instead of saying abracadabra, I say, if you want to have good luck, don't hit women. Mm-hmm. Or if you want to have good luck, don't poop in the water supply. Or some kind of message along with the magic show, so that when people talk about it, they pick up a rock and they wave their hand over it and try to recreate the rock vanishing. And of course they say the same magic words in the same way a child will say abracadabra, right? Which actually in Amharic means what I say I will create. And I've worked in Amharic, and in Amharic, let me think. Sodochin merdat toru idil yamatal, which is the same language as Amharic means. If you want good luck, don't hurt women.
So it's kind of like what some magicians who are teaching values, like at school shows or birthday parties or something, anti-bullying or, reading.
Not the same at all.
No?
Not the same, because, there's a message to it, but their message is, while I have your attention, let me also bring up this topic, and here's an example of how a sponge ball illustrates this topic, right? And it's a valid way to get people's attention and spread information. The difference is, I work in illiterate cultures in which the goal is not to give specific information, but to ignite argument and discussion. So, I appear in a village under a big tree. I put on a show. It's very exciting. The goal is to have everyone in that audience become the storyteller of the big tree experience. So I become a local legend. One day, a white-skinned lady appeared under the big tree. She made a ball disappear and appear under my uncle's ear, and then it vanished and turned into a butterfly. And she told me that if I don't hit women, I'll have good luck. And when my sister dropped her sticks, I didn't hit her. I helped her pick them up, and my goat had a baby. I wonder if it's true. No, it's not true. Yes, it is true. Oh, it couldn't be true. She didn't really make the ball disappear. Well, and then that discussion that it ignites puts the people experiencing it as the storytellers, which is the nature of theater for social change. It's also a magic act with a message, but the key that we're trying to work with is to use the cultural experience for people to go home to their dinner table and begin to discuss it.
Right.
Right? Less of a map. The other ones are more, here, if there's a fire, go do A, B, and C, and D. Or stay away from drugs because blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And this is it's much subtler and much vaguer. People remember it as only having a wonderful time and something really silly happened, and this phrase is spread around now.
And you had taken this idea, as you said originally, then from your trade show experience. So this way, that's what you want people to do, is to talk about the product or the company. And so this way, that you had back when you were doing that, I guess you had something in which you.
But the trade show thing was to qualify leads, so my client would only have conversation with people who already wanted their stuff and get more people to buy their stuff. It's still a different motive. The thing that's the same as a trade show in Cause to Wonder is I go into a space, I gather people together, and I impart information through my show. The difference is a trade show is a controlled space, cause to wonder. I mean, usually walking around in the streets. Sometimes I have an organized school program or something. And it's a spontaneous experience of something that just happened. And the belief systems of the people who are experiencing it are the same as the belief systems in our culture about psychics. A lot of people see it and don't say, oh, that's a trick, I wonder how she does it. They just say, oh, look, she does that. I always knew someday I'd meet someone who could do that.
They accept it.
They accept it, and they come to me and say, can you read my palm?
Yeah.
Or tell me my future, or whatever those things. In our society, when a dove appears or a handkerchief changes colors, we say, what's the trick? But if a psychic uses their tarot cards, many of us don't say, what's the trick? They say, oh, that's interesting. So that is our realm of authenticity. And in tribal culture, authentication sometimes comes by just showing something to someone that they don't understand. I have control over something that you don't understand, therefore I have knowledge you understand, so listen to what I say, or at least consider it, because there's something worth your listening to.
And when you go into these communities, do you just walk in, or are you there as part of some other organization that has brought you in?
Well, we're always invited. That's part of the reason we're on 501c3. Most of the visas required to do it when you go from country to country you have to partner with some other one. We've partnered with the YWCA. We've partnered with the Manda Wilderness Trust. We've partnered with all kinds of different groups to help us organize where we're going to be and be safe. And I always have with me at least one other Westerner and at least one cultural liaison that'll pull me out of a crowd, or that'll translate, or help to keep it safe and help to make sure that I'm not crossing cultural boundaries that I don't understand. Because
right.
I want to take it to the edge, but I don't want to turn people off, right?
Right.
Because there's always somebody throwing rocks at me telling me I'm a devil. They're usually missionaries, but they're
really?
Well, mostly Christian missionaries in Africa are the ones. If somebody gets really mad at me doing miracles, it's someone whose business is riding on the idea that their miracle
system.
Yeah. Well, their belief system starts with a miracle, and if those miracles are authentic, then the belief system holds. I don't believe that. I don't think the belief systems are authenticated on the miracles. I think that's a whole different thing, but they do. So me coming through and doing miracles is much more exciting than their story of a guy doing miracles a long time ago, right?
I guess whenever you're trying to preach to someone, I should say someone, but a group of people who are not intellectual, I guess, and thinking about that they do have a belief system that what they are seeing must be real. So if you're showing a magic, that must be real. If they're talking about God and resurrection and something, and they're trying to explain something that sounds like a miracle, then it would be hard to distinguish between the two, because you don't come in and say, I'm going to vanish this rock, no, really, it's over here, I'm just kidding you. I mean, you don't explain.
Sometimes I do. Sometimes if the village gets really upset, I pull the chief aside, or actually I usually use the matriarch. I pull the matriarch aside and I show her where I'm holding out the object so that she's not upset, and we have this little silent exchange so she can see it, and then I do the zipper sign over my lip and my finger, and they nod and understand, and I do the show, and the matriarch is looking at the holdout coin or the holdout rock or whatever, nodding their head like it's okay to proceed so that the village isn't upset. Because here's what happens. I go into a village, I make a rock disappear, everybody gathers around, I make another rock disappear, and they're afraid, so they all gather a rock. They pick up a rock, because in a lot of places, if a cow goes crazy, or there's a drunk, or there's a ruckus, everybody has a rock and they throw it. Most of them carry a rock in their pocket, because
really?
Who knows if they're going to, if you're going to meet a leopard on the walk home, you want to have one, right? I mean, sure. If you lived in bear country, you do the same thing. You carry your pepper spray or whatever you got, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So everybody has a rock anyway, or they grab one. So they're scared of me at first, and they're like, well, what's going on? What's going on? So I discovered that if I take a rock and I vanish it into the belly of a small naked child, and then I pull it out of their butt, then, right, exactly what happens.
They laugh.
Old men laugh.
Yeah.
Right? And I would never do butt magic in the Western world.
Well, no.
It would be crass, right? But God bless you, Johnny Brown.
Oh boy, there's a name from the past.
Yeah, but didn't he have a great cup and cone?
He did.
I learned it, but he was such a dirty old man I couldn't stand next to him long enough.
Oh, yeah. With stories we could tell offline on that one.
Anyway, where was I?
Talk about so that way things...
Put out of their bum, and then the old ladies laugh, and when the old matriarchs laugh, the elders are giving permission to enjoy it, and you see everybody put their rock away. And then
they start watching you and listening to what you have to say.
I continue. And it's like I have some magicians that are angry with me. They're like, well, you're like an evangelistic preacher. You're lying to these people. And I'm like, no, I'm not going in there with a doctrine. I'm only going in there with an expression I want to spread. And I'm doing some party tricks, and everybody has a really good time. I've sent scientists in years after I was in a certain area to study a measures and impact report of the work that I do. So I went to an isolated region in Mozambique a few years ago, and then a couple years later I sent a scientist back. And this region was in a particular valley, in a particular area where there were only 27 villages that spoke that particular language. So it was easy to track from the 5 villages I was in how many villages it extended to and if people heard about it. So a couple years later, this team of scientists went in and interviewed 30 people in every village, and they found out all sorts of things, like 104% of the people remembered the phrase, if you want a happy life, have a clean lake, or a clean lake is a happy life, which meant more people had heard the phrase than actually saw the performance.
Oh, so it continued. Yeah.
Right. So word had spread. And in the villages that were not on the edge of the lake but were more up in the valley, the expression had changed to a clean river is a happy life instead of a clean lake. So it had impacted and changed. When we asked young people, they always remembered the song absolutely and most of the tricks. When we asked old people, they remembered every single trick, but not so much the song. And the song was a call and return song, telling you that the novelty factor of the tricks were so high. The old people had heard a lot of songs in their lives, but these miracles were their first, right?
Right.
And we asked the people, was this a funny thing? Was it a clown? Was it a witch? Was it black magic? Was it what was it? They said, no. We knew it was just for fun. But when you interviewed the individuals, the same people who said, no, we knew it was just for fun said, well, she touched. In my Clean Lake for a Happy Life show, I do some thimble moves where a poop appears on my fingertip, and it keeps appearing behind people's ears because somebody pooped in the river. So I keep pulling poop off of people. It's pretty disgusting, right?
Yeah.
And this woman says, well, I gave my grandson a bath. I don't know how that poop got behind his ear. I know he was clean, but she touched him. So I watched her for a year. I watched my grandson for a year, and nothing happened, so I know he's okay. Same woman who said, oh, we thought it was just for fun. So they may espouse that they think it's just a clown and fun, but there's a shadow on their belief system. That being said, the guy who manages my rental home in Idaho, I took him to lunch last year, and I'd never met him before, and he's a missionary, and I did some magic for him and his family, and as he dropped me off, he said, that is magic, not sleight of hand, right? So you can laugh. But what are your belief systems?
I've had people ask me that also, and I just kind of blink. I had someone say, isn't like most of magic, like 80% really just sleight of hand and trickery? Well,
but who's to say? Do we know? I mean, that's the word. If you say I believe, you're saying I admit that it can't be known, but I have decided to take this point of view, and I have decided to stop thinking about it. Because if you wonder about a belief, the belief is no longer exists. It changes. It's a new belief. Right? So when you stop wondering, you start believing. So it is my hope that most of us adapt a I wonder philosophy, not a I believe philosophy.
When you are performing then also, what percentage, I guess, do you do tricks versus your speech? It sounds like, that you're kind of almost a motivational speaker when you go in there, but you're using...
That's only because we're talking about the dynamic of it.
Yes.
If you go to, and please do go to Facebook Cause to Wonder or the causetowonder.org website and look around at our videos and stuff, and you can see the work. But no, it's a family silly show, and I keep my material super simple. I'm down to sponge balls, Professor's Nightmare, color changing handkerchief, and a change bag, right? So, and it's very simple. But no, there's not a lot of preaching. It doesn't last a long time. It's a tiny undercurrent of the whole experience, but it is the purpose of the experience. In fact, the purpose of the experience is to affect 6 to 9 year old boys. You're not gonna change the habits of an adult. You're not gonna change the habits of anybody past puberty. But 6 to 9 year old boys are gonna look around and say, well, is this true? And they're gonna find proof that their friend's father doesn't hit his wife and they have a happy family, and his father does hit his wife and their family's not as happy. Or your friend goes to poop in the river and you live down the river, and you're like, well, wait a minute, dude, poop on the side of the river. My mother's down there doing my laundry, right? So, and those subtle changes, as adults, we don't get behavioral change. You know, it's in the formative years that people can consider it. And it's only my hope that young men in tribal villages who buy and sell women for chickens and pigs experiment with the idea that if they help women and don't hurt women, they'll have better luck. And then it will resolve itself. I'm not there preaching. It's not a long, I'm hired to do motivational speeches for corporations about the work that I do, but that's another thing entirely. That's just to raise funds for this. But the actual work it's a very soft sell. It's like saying you're selling the word abracadabra.
Right.
Or you're selling wiffle dust.
Okay. And you're moving from one village to another? I guess like in the same day you might do 2 or 3 villages, or do you kind of do one a week or something, or how's that?
Oh, it depends on how long I'm there, the organizational abilities of the people I'm with, how far the villages are apart, if I'm doing organized school shows, if I'm doing spontaneous, it depends. Like sometimes I'm hosted by families and I'm in a village for a week at a time or something, and sometimes I'm on a rolling bus that rolls through town and just rolls up different places. The idea is to do continuous shows just far enough apart that the information crosses over and people hear about it twice.
Gotcha.
We leave behind signage. We write big signs and leave signs out. I do stickers. We have people write on rocks and leave rocks around the expression so it sort of sits behind. Then all that rock and signage information was a suggestion of the measures and impact people of how to make keep the message alive and have it discussed more.
Now, this is completely different, obviously, than Magicians Without Borders. That is a different organization. They have a different agenda, I believe.
But a great organization.
Okay.
I'm telling you what, they concentrate. They have a lot of different agendas. But one of their things that they do is they bring magic shows to refugee camps around the world. And I'll tell you what, you have not lived in hell until you have lived in a refugee camp. And that day of joy or that hour of joy or that moment of joy is so relived by those people. Magicians Without Borders is a great organization.
Mm-hmm. Have you been involved with them before or watched them?
The High Commission of Human Rights in the United Nations brought me in for a briefing to talk about the grassroots aspect of changing mentality. And so my involvement with them was to introduce them to the High Commission of Human Rights, because when the High Commission of Human Rights at the United Nations has a disaster, they decide how to approach it. And now they're also a tool in the belt. And their tool is it's less scientific as to have theater for social change impact, although all theater does. So it is geared at a slightly different audience. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you what, if you are of the inkling to get involved with Magicians Without Borders, you should. Now, they really have a big system.
That's a good point there. I was going to say that you could join the Magicians Without Borders if you are of that ilk, that you want to help, that you can physically go and be one of those magicians. Your organization pretty much is just you going around. Is that correct?
No, it's not true. It's not true. Sometimes it's me, but we have other programs. Like we did a program, anti-gang program. I don't know if you've seen it on our website, but when in the Virgin Islands, we've just gotten the Crips and the Bloods in the last decade or so. Well,
in your small community, I mean, you're saying it's only just a few hundred people. That's amazing.
No, it's 2,000 people. It's 2,000 people on our island. But St. Thomas, the next door island, has about 30,000 people. And some people were sent to federal prison. They came back. They'd been jumped into the gang. They understood the gang lore. They started up the gangs here, and the kids wanted to be part of something, so they joined the gangs. And there's just last week we had 5 shootings in St. Thomas. There are only 30,000 people there. St. Thomas is just after Somalia in leading murder capital of the world. Anyway, I brought down a friend of mine who I know through the magic community, who is amputated at his waist. And he came down, and we put him behind a table, and he's a black man, and he was in a gang war, and that's how he lost his body. And we put him behind a table, and I came out and did a little magic, and I said, I know you guys know everything. You're 18, you're 17. They're just treating you like kids because it's the law, but you're adults. You know everything, like this yellow ball. You know it's in my hand. No, you don't. Ha, ha, ha. And then I say, but I have a friend that's going to change your life. He's got a story. And then my friend behind the table says, I joined the gang when I was 18. I thought, what have I got to lose? And as soon as he says, what have I got to lose, we pull the table away, and the guy's amputated at his rib cage, right? Mm-hmm. And these kids go from having these, what are you talking about, white lady, bad piss-ass attitude, to, oh, my God, what happened to you, dude? And he talks to them for an hour about what it was like to be in a gang, how to stay out of a gang, how you really make less than minimum wage being in a gang. and how to, and it's a really heavy thing because he's real and he's a gangster, so he can talk the talk and walk the walk.
Kind of like Scared Straight, kind of when you throw kids in prison.
And then he did a breakout session with all the kids who were of high risk. And boy, he talked to them seriously, silly straight, right? Mm-hmm. So we do. There are all kinds of other programs that are involved in Cause to Wonder that are different. But my involvement is helping women bring good things and don't. For people who do want to get involved and support your organization, tell us more about where they can go, what they can do, how can they help. I have had really great support from the magic community. From the very beginning, Joe Hanasek, who's a magician from Ohio and a collector, has been sending me $25 a month.
Wow.
He's been doing it for 10 years now. Mm-hmm. I've gotten donations from Steve Cohen, Jules Fisher, the Pendragons, Wes Flanagan, well, actually Jonathan Pendragon and Wes Flanagan, and Steve Silverman, Misty Lee, Donald Chase. I've had help from Pete Byro, and Erica Larson was on our board, and Steve Silverman and Johnny Fox did performances for us. So a lot of people have helped. But I haven't pushed or looked for grants or done any of those things because I'm just a one-woman band on the level of administration. So anybody who has money would like it. If you don't have a will and you don't have a family, leave us your stuff in your will. Leave us your magic collection. We'll sell it. Leave us your house. We will get money for it. Those sort of things. I made a lot of money in trade shows, and I'm spending my retirement money. I didn't know what to do with it, and I'm almost sure that I will spend all my money before I cease to exist on this planet, and that's okay. I'll just go back to doing birthday parties. I'm not saying I don't want each of you to pick up your computer right now and commit a monthly payment on PayPal to help us do what we want to do or introduce us to someone who can be our patron. But the most important thing you can do is continue to use the words, if you hurt a woman, you'll have bad luck, or if you help a woman, you'll have good luck. Because what we're doing is buying time and energy to pay for hotels and pay for translators and all those things just to get those words out. So anybody out there who can help us, tell people about us, and we'd appreciate your donations very much. I'm going to go broke. If you don't make a donation and you find out when I'm old I'm broke, let me live in your living room, in your basement. It's fine.
You can help me now or help me later.
Well, I could definitely sit in the corner of a magic club all night in my old age. That'd be just fine.
Great.
But I am grateful to the support of the magic community, truly, truly. The number one reason to donate to a charity, they say, is a deceased man whose wife or widow wants to donate to a cause that they cared about. So if you're listening to this, tell your wife to help us out when you go. And the number two reason to donate to charity is because you can't stand your kids. Isn't that terrible? But really, I'm just looking for one of my friends out there in the magic world who actually is wealthy, who's known me forever and knows my integrity, to step up and say, here, Lisa, we'll handle this. Because right now I'm burning through my retirement.
Where does the money go to? I mean, like with Red Cross and other kinds of organizations, they could say it goes here, here, and here. Is there a place like on the website that says here's how the money is being spent?
The money is being spent on basic expenses. I pay myself $20 an hour, and I haven't been paid in 5 years. Mm-hmm. The money goes to buy stickers, pay for airline tickets, pay for shots, cultural liaison, pay for hotel rooms, and rent vehicles, all the basic expenses of doing of getting out there in the world and going around to do it. Mm-hmm. People can designate money specifically if they want in a donation I want this to go towards this particular program, or I want it to pay for these things. But we're not that sophisticated in so much as, let's just say, we're not so sophisticated is that there's enough money coming in that it has any kind of direct pool. It basically covers whatever expenses are at the time, and then the rest of them I just pay.
And so, again, where does the website, or where can they go to make donations?
You can make a donation on the Facebook page. But the Facebook page takes a percentage of it. You can make a donation on the website. There's a donate button, and there it gives you 3 or 4 ways to donate. It gives you the wording to put in your will. It gives you the possibility to do PayPal and do monthly, blah, blah, blah. And the best way to do it is to send us a check, because then nobody takes a percentage in the money, handling of the money.
What's the website?
Cause2wonder.org. That's cause, CAUSETOWONDER.org. Did I spell that right?
Yes,
O-R-G?
you did. Yeah.
And what else?
That's good.
Yeah, and it's not a sort of thing. Lots of people come to me and say, yeah, I'd love to do this. Oh, man, that'd be great. It doesn't pay. You're not getting, if you want to do it, great, but you have to spend your own money to do it. Mm-hmm. And it's not elegant. I sleep on airport floors all the time so that I can spend one more day out in the field. So if you think you want to volunteer and you're going to be taken care of, you're not. And you're probably, the hotel room that we get will mean that you have to put flea powder all around it and sleep in a bag. And you'll be itchy and you'll be constipated and you won't have any human rights and you won't believe how unbearably incompetent the people that we encounter are along the way and how uneducated they are. And you'll eat something and your poop will turn green and you'll be praying you were home at least for 6 days of every month that you're on a trip. So just know that. So that being said, we have taken one of our donors with us so far on a trip to Punjab. And if you watch the website page, I'm about to post about her. Pam Purdue has been one of our donors for years, and she's a pilot for American Airlines. So she came along to one of our Punjab trips in India so that I would have a second Westerner with me. Mm-hmm. Next month I'm going to post a post that shows her crying. She's so sad to be leaving the good time. So that's the case. And we can always use accountants, and we can always use whatever help you've got. But it's not the sort of thing where you get to say, hey, I have a great act, let me go.
Right.
Where can I audition? You would have to be able to demonstrate that you could street perform, show that you've been to a dozen foreign countries on your own, and be a completely low-maintenance person. Oh, Karen Barris. Karen might be the person. I'm trying to talk her into it, but that's another story.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Lisa. I appreciate your time and taking us through your life here of what's been happening, and this sounds very exciting. So the name of my podcast is called The Magic Word, and I always like to ask my guests at the end of what their magic phrase is. What's your magic word? What is your philosophy of life?
Helping women brings good luck.
Helping women brings good luck.
Yeah, if you want good luck, help a woman.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
So for the Magic Word podcast from the Virgin Islands, that was Lisa Menna, and this is Scotty out.
Bye, everybody.
Wow, lots of great stuff packed into this last hour. I hope that you enjoyed listening to this as much as I enjoyed having the conversation there with Lisa, and I hope I asked all the right questions that you would have asked had you been sitting there with her then as well. And if you ever get a chance to see Lisa, be sure to tell her how much that you enjoyed this episode, and most importantly, please see if there's some way that you can assist. Financially, if you can just go to their website and you can donate there, they can certainly use your financial support. They really have a great cause to wonder that she's working with, and so highly recommend that you help support her in any way that you can. It's great. Thank you, Lisa, again very much for being my guest this week on the Magic Word podcast. Well, next week we have another legendary magician who is going to be on, and if you are a subscriber to the pod letter each week that we send out, you know who that's going to be. And if you don't subscribe to the pod letter, well, then you ought to join the other 1,000 people who get this newsletter every week also. All you have to do is go to themagicwordpodcast.com, and there you will see an opportunity where that you can fill out the form and you can then subscribe. And each week you will find out not only who is in this week's episode, but also who's coming up next week and some suggestions from the archives. And so one of the things that I'm going to leave you with that we have been doing for a while, for the last few weeks, has been doing a little video of the Magic and Martini Thursday nights. And we've been featuring some magicians. I try to keep this limited to about 4 of us, so this way we don't have a lot of cross-talk and a lot of interference, and we kind of keep on target. And we have an interesting group of magicians that we can all discuss different things from our backgrounds and experiences. So it's something that you can join us on Facebook Live, and if you are in a different time zone and it's not convenient to join us live, you can always watch it at a later time. It's always, again, reposted also on YouTube. So if you'll go to the YouTube channel and look up for Scott Wells Magic, there you will see those then there as well. Well, I'm going to leave it at that because this has been a pretty full episode, and next week is going to be even more full because, oh boy, you're going to love it. It's one of those I almost kind of wish I was keeping for the number 600 podcast because it's legendary. You're going to enjoy it. So until next week, stay well, get booked, and remember, if you want to have good luck, help a woman. This is Scotty out.